Yeah, Scotty H, Hill Farm, origin story. Let me take you back. ...2010, Alan, a couple of lifetimes ago. It was a funny time for me. Because unfortunately it was my grandparents passing away. So my nan died a few years before, and then we were looking after my granddad, and then my granddad passed. So we had this opportunity of obviously inheritance. So we had the all of the emotions around that, and I get the heebie-jeebies around death and inheritance and succession planning and stuff. I never wanted to talk about it. Probably because I'm Peter Pan and going to live forever. But it was at the same time where I was exiting my digital business as well. I ran a digital business for 14 years. We created digital products and did all the magic of licensing those to different countries and stuff, and different vertical markets, and I just was exiting that business, fell out of love with the industry, fell out of love with what I was doing, but funny enough, met the woman of my dreams at the same time as well. So it was a very emotional time. Oh, plus I had an identity crisis because I just finished playing rugby as well. So I've been a rugby player all my life, you know, it's a religion to me rather than anything else. And there's these key events that all happened at the same time in 2010. And so, yeah, I was just had this mindset of new beginnings. You know, I've got this one opportunity, I've got my inheritance piece, I've got a business I'm exiting, I've got a new start with a lady that I love, and we want to grow a family together. You know, we've fallen in love. Let's start planning. Let's see where we're going. So I started designing my life with the lady and her parents. So I was in South London at the time. Sorry, I didn't say that. I was in South London, living with Jax, and her parents was up in Peterborough, just near outside Peterborough. So the idea was to move up that A1 M11 corridor so we can get some help and support around the family. At the same time, my family was moving out east to Essex. So I was going north, which was very scary, going across the Thames, and my family were going east. And we were going up there. And we started researching, just like going to like St Neots and little places like that with the new build houses and stuff like that. And like there was new developments here, there and everywhere in little hamlets and little villages and stuff. And we'd go to these townhouses that are new development, and the top floor would be this wonderful bedroom and a walk-in wardrobe and a bathroom and everything along those lines. Mrs. loved it. She was like, yes, this is what we're doing. And I was like going, oh, these walls are thin. You know, these floors seem a bit odd. We can't really extend out to add value. We can't go up and extend value. We're going to buy this house and then be stuck here. That was my perception. I was like, I don't really want to go from being in a place I loved in South London, which is a very, very cute place. It was East Dulwich, born and raised there. And it was like a little villagey feel, you know, but you was anonymous as well. So moving to a village where my perception was that you weren't going to be very anonymous and everybody on top of you and everything along those lines. I was like going through this very emotional period going, I need to break out, I need to be free, you know, this doesn't feel right. So I was going to the new build houses, the missus was loving them, and I was like, well, we can't add value. You know, that was my key driver really. And then I picked up a book. No, the missus was saying, oh, well, we'll buy land then and we'll convert it. And at that moment in time, I'd spent like 14 years behind a desk. I could just barely change a plug. And I'd still have to YouTube how to change a plug. You know, my technical DIY skills was like zero, like proper zero. I famously actually wired a plug incorrectly and had it like that for like 12 years or something like that. And this kettle still ran. I'm surprised it didn't, blow up all the inheritance. Anywho, right, I don't want to digress. So yeah, that was my background in 2010, and the missus was like, okay, we'll if we're looking at something to add value, because we've got this one opportunity in our life, to really make a statement, to jump up on the property ladder, to get a signature piece and provide safety and stability for my family. And funny enough, that really rung true for me, because that was what my nan provided us. So we just recently lost my nan. And Nan was the matriarchal part of the family. Whenever you're in trouble, you go to me Nan. She always had the table there for you, door was always open, no judging, and she's got your back. That was my Nan. All right? So I was like, okay, let's try and do that elsewhere. Let's try and get some land and provide that place where we can always go back to, where that table and that family stability will be. And that is what I wanted to do for, all of the hard work my nan and granddad put in, dragging us up as kids. So then we were looking at pieces of land, we were looking at equestrian places, we were looking at farms and everything along those lines. And because they already had farm buildings on them, or homes on them, they were like £1 million plus, and we were just going, oh, surely there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way of doing this. And then we started looking at just parcels of land without the house. And after a few Google search, I found the book on Amazon, Field to Farm by David Ackerman. And this is still 2010. And that set me free. That painted the way forward, that we could buy just normal agricultural land without a home on it, and gives you the template and the way to then get the planning gain. And I was like, well, with that planning gain, that's the stability that I was looking for. That's the security for my family legacy piece, all right? Whilst not being all restricted and, pinned down in a village sort of side of things, or riddled with mortgage debt. So I would highly recommend people to read that book, Field to Farm by David Ackerman. The price on Amazon now, I think it's around about 70 odd quid, because there's not many of them around. I've got 2 copies, so if you want a copy, I'll post it to you. And I thumbed it. I went through it and I highlighted all of the bits and all of the stages that you need to go through and everything along those lines. And we went looking for land. And it still took us 2 years to find an ideal part of land that was on that M11 A1 corridor towards the in-laws. Unfortunately, when we got there, we went to view other places and it just didn't work out. It didn't work out for a number of reasons. But once we got there, when on like location and everything along those lines, they walk through the door and they get that feeling that this is the place. Essentially, I did that, but it was from the farm gate. And, the farm gate opened and the drive went all the way down to the homestead. So I hadn't even seen the homestead. And I was like, this feels right. It was wonderful rolling hills, no pylons in sight, which were coming from South London. I was like, this is absolutely beautiful. It's gorgeous. And it's on North Bedfordshire Wolds as well. So it's just this nice, rolling hills, beautiful scenery, loads of wildlife and everything along those lines. And even before we got down to the homestead, I was like, this is the one. And I got really, really started to get giddy. And started to engage with the existing farmer who was selling the plot of land. And let's just say he was a bit of a character. And there were some ins and outs and negotiations on that. And let's just say he negotiated better than me, because I was emotional at that time and I was emotionally engaged and emotionally charged. And I had that feeling and I was like all giddy knickers and I was like, no, this is the place. So it's a mistake that I still lose some sleep over. But basically in our negotiations, we settled on a price, and then like late doors, we was just about to exchange contracts. It was like, oh no, another $5,000. And I was like, well, buy another £5,000. He goes, another £5,000 or I keep the tractor. And I was like, oh, well, all right, you just have the tractor then. And it was the worst mistake I've ever done because I really needed that tractor. And it would have been great fun and it would have been awesome. But I lost the tractor in negotiations. Fortunately, we got Hill Farm, which is a wonderful site and I love it to bits. It's been our medicine. It's also been a lot of sacrifice and compromise. Sometimes it's felt like a curse. But this place has taught me so much. It's taught me about how I approach things and everything along those lines. The learning curve when you get onto your land is really, really fast and steep and so much fun. But I was up for it. I was open heart, open mind. Got the woman of my dreams just about to marry me in 2 months' time, and we've just bought the land. You know, it's new beginnings here. You know, I could take on the world. I'm still a young whippersnapper at 32 or whatever it was. You know, I could take on the world. We inherited 45 sheep. Yeah, no problem. I can take care of 45 sheep. Oh my God. Oh my God. The first lambing season was special. You know, we lost some. You know, I hand reared some. And yeah, it was very special. But not knowing what to do, you know, one morning I can remember just doing the morning rounds and there's a sheep just lying there on its side and a massive belly. And I was like, well, I don't know, what do I do with that? I don't know. So off to Google, off to YouTube, you know, what to do with a sheep. And it's just there. And because of it had this extended belly, it had bloat. And the videos on YouTube about how to cure bloat is basically just stab the sheep. So I'm there with YouTube in the middle of the paddock trying to get reception. You know, where do I stab this sheep? You know, and you know, I managed to stab it right. You go, all the air come out. Bit of blue spray. Blue spray solves everything. So yeah, these are the essentials that you need when you buy in your farm. Field to Farm by David Akerman and blue spray, because blue spray helps everything. Blue spray, and then the sheep just jumped up and walked away. And I'm like there in a nervous wreck in the middle of a paddock. It's freezing cold. YouTube and a knife. Anyway, so they're the adventures that you're going to go on to. So that was 2014 we actually got onto the land. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know how to do it. We just got on there with the attitude of, let's figure it out. And we suffered quite a lot with possibility overwhelm, because there's so much you can do. It's a blank canvas. So we had, you know, loads of passion and heated arguments and everything along those lines about what we were going to do and what we weren't going to do and everything along those lines. But what we did need to do was follow the field to farm system. And that is essentially, as soon as you get the land, you put in permitted development, it's a PD. It's an application that you can just download from the form. Hopefully we'll put it onto the website as well, all filled out, that we've promised before as well. For an agricultural barn, that's the first step. So a permitted development for an agricultural barn, and you put the application in, and in 28 days, as soon as that 28-day marker goes, on day 29, you have now got permission to build an agricultural barn on site. So as soon as that happened, day 29, the field to farm system teaches you that you can then stay on the land in a caravan. So on day 29, we went and bought a caravan from Eli, 1,700 quid. So that's our first home, as we were just going to get married in 2 months' time. And we just bought a static caravan from Eli, you know, what is it, like, is it 12 metres by 3 metres, something like that? So, you know, what you find on the holiday parks and stuff like that, it's one of those. You know, it had open plan living space, like 2 bedrooms. Well, it had 3 bedrooms actually, and we knocked one into another one and then had an ensuite instead. So we had 2 bedrooms, because that's how posh we were. You know, we had an ensuite caravan. that's all good. So then we got that onto the land. Now you're staying on your beautiful farmland without any planning permission. You can stay on there for 5 years building that barn. That's the crux of it. So we're on there. Just about to get married. Beautiful sun, family coming over, kids going crazy, barbecues, having beers on the farm. It's a wonderful period of life. But unfortunately, there was a backdrop where I had a massive family fallout, essentially with my father. And it was big. It was very stressful, and it threatened everything that we were working towards, funny enough. It threatened that we'd lose the farm. It threatened that we'd lose our inheritance. It threatened that it would break my family apart. And it went against everything that was me. I'm very family orientated, very loyal. And now I'm in a conflict with my father that's going to ruin all of that. And I got very stressed out, very stressed. I'd say that obviously I had a broken heart, but then it was the stress of providing for Jax, my new wife, and trying to keep a home and my vision alive. That was 2014, and it took till December 2015 to solve all of the conflict and get the paperwork from the lawyers and the solicitors and everything along those lines to protect the farm. I lost a lot of money, but at least I got the farm. So done. But it made me very stressed in the run up to that. And I got very ill in the September before the December. I finally went to the doctors, and because I was bleeding and I was then in a lot of pain. And unfortunately, the doctors misdiagnosed me, and they just gave me some suppositories to stop the bleeding. And it got worse. So I went back to the doctors. They misdiagnosed me again, gave me stronger suppositories, misdiagnosed me again. And then all this time, it was wrapping up to the crescendo of the December paperwork. So I was just getting to the December paperwork, and I was getting more and more stressed, more and more diagnosed, and more ill. And I got to the 19th of December 2015, and I signed the paperwork. I went back that night to Jack's, and we was actually around the in-laws at that time, because we was just ramping up for Christmas. I was like, right, it's done. We're protected. It's going to be a good Christmas. Unfortunately, things got worse. I didn't get out of bed for 7 months, essentially. So on the 20th of December 2015, I went to bed because I was in pain, just done the work. Got up for Christmas, and anybody who knows me knows I love my food, love Christmas, love everything along those lines. I took one bite of a sausage in blanket, and I had to go back to bed again. And my mother-in-law and my wife were nursing me with hot water bottles and everything along those lines, phoning the hospital to tell them, the ambulance to come and get me. And they were like, it's Christmas, we can't come and get you. So I had to wait 2 days to the 27th, in bed, riding around in pain, bleeding, diarrhoea. Sorry for the details here, but this is how dark it got, And this is like therapy. And on the 27th, the ambulance actually come. So it was the day after Boxing Day, the ambulance turned up. And then I didn't get out of hospital until 7 months later. On the 2nd of January, I had to have an emergency operation. I'd lost 30 kilos in 2 weeks. And the surgeon said if we waited another half an hour, I would have died from septicemia, where they misdiagnosed ulcerated colitis and my bowel was basically exploding through ulcers. And that's what stress can do for you. So anybody, going through some stress, going through some heartache, try and get some help. Just reach out to someone, because that was the darkest time. And as I say, I actually got worse in hospital. My stomach didn't turn back on again. So I had complications. The remaining bowel that didn't get cut out, it all twisted up. So when I woke up, I had 11 tubes and gizmos hanging out my neck, my nose, my mouth, my privates, my bum, my arms, my neck. 11 tubes coming out, and I was dosed up on morphine and everything along those lines. And I was in a lot of pain. Because I'd lost so much weight, my spine seized because I had no fat in my body. So my spine seized and I was in chronic pain through my back. So they just put me on a morphine drip. I had a little thing. Every single time the pain got too much, I was on morphine for a couple of months. And that was after the surgery. So it got proper dark. And guess what this time? We'd had a 3-month-old baby by then. So my missus, all right, she's a very, very, very strong lady. She had a 3-month-old baby living in a caravan that had, at that time, no dedicated power. You had to turn on the generator. And she was looking after the farm and looking after her husband in horrible winter. And anybody who knows Jax, she don't like winter. She shuts down for winter. She loves sun. Yeah. And she went through that. And we've suffered from that as well, moving forward. I started getting better after a couple of months after the surgery, as in stabilised. And I just can remember waking up one time and just going, right, I've got to get back onto the farm and make this work. And holding on to that vision of getting that stability for the missus. So I highly recommend that when you go on this journey of finding your farmland, grab hold of that vision and really, really want it, because it's going to get you through some challenging times. Grab your North Star and make sure that you want it enough, because if you don't want it enough, the challenges that you're going to have along the way might just derail you. So really, really hold on to that. So yeah, one baby and everything along those lines. Got out of hospital Q3 2016, and you can imagine I was the breadwinner as well at the time, because obviously Jax was being mum, so we had no money. We had no revenue for 7 months, and the wolves were at the door. There was letters and red letters and council tax arrears and everything along those lines. Had to get out of hospital and make things right, get stronger, get back out to work, earn some money, and start climbing back on the horse, essentially. And at that time, during all of that 7 months, my friends were amazing. Like, I moved away from all, right? They were all still in southeast London, southeast of England, in Kent and Surrey and Sussex and stuff. And they were travelling up and helping Jax out on the farm and stuff. Thank you for all of their support during that time whilst I was still in hospital. So you need good people around you to get through some of these challenges as well, It is like therapy. All right, so let's change tack. So let's change direction. The fortunate thing in 2016, whilst I was laying in the hospital bed, is the Class Q planning permission rules were updated. All right? And I was oblivious to this because I was obviously still being lazy in bed. But once I got out, I realised that Class Q was relaxed a bit, and you could take agricultural buildings, barns essentially, and through using a Class Q planning permission, apply to change them to a home. And I was like, awesome. It's gone from planning permission to permitted development. I was like, something is going right. Fantastic. It's been a hard 2 years. Something's going right for a change. Beautiful. So I applied for a Class Q. We got a beautiful hay barn. And I can't remember the metre squared of it, but it's a massive hay barn, open-sided hay, steel structure, good roof, gutter in, side cladding and everything along those lines. Ideal for Class Q. And I was like, this is it. We're getting our planning game from our permitted development, and I've got my stability for my wife and my boy. My first boy. I was like, yes, awesome. Put in my Class Q permitted development, refused. I was like, you got to be serious, haven't you? You're like, why have you refused it? It's an ideal candidate. Ticked all of the boxes and everything along those lines, right? And this is the theme throughout all of my origin story, is these, sequence of events and all of these mishaps and how they've all intertwined with each other. Essentially, the Class Q failed because of 2 years previously, I put in the permitted development from the agricultural barn. And because of it was in the right distance and developed within the 2 year period, you didn't qualify for the Class Q. So by me doing my permitted development for my agri barn, actually blocked my Class Q. So if I didn't do that, if I was 2 years later, if I didn't do that, I would have got my Class Q on my barn just like that. And that was 2016. And that was refused. And I just couldn't believe it. I was just like, right, we'll appeal it. So I appealed it because I said, because funny enough, I don't know whether anybody picked up that I was a bit wonky in that year. I was a bit ill. So I didn't actually build my barn, the agricultural barn, the PD barn. I didn't build it. We cleared the land, but we didn't build it. So my argument was we didn't build that barn, shouldn't get in the way of the Class Q. But unfortunately, the appeal failed and the refusal was upheld because of I did that PD. You're not allowed to have that agricultural PD, which then blocks you developing another barn, which I suppose, if you take a step back, is the right thing, because you don't want overdevelopment in the open countryside in green spaces. So it is the right thing. But purely why don't you look at it the lens of my experience? There is no other PD barn. It wasn't built. So why should it, by matter of fact, block the Class Q? And so they said that I've developed the agri barn too much to then get my Class Q, which is brilliant, because in 2018, so 2 years later, I've got back into work now, started paying off things and, building towards the future and everything along those lines. 2018, I get another letter from the council. And this time, it's an enforcement notice. All right? And this enforcement notice come on my doorstep 3 years and 11 months after my PD for my agri barn. Okay? It might well be by coincidence, it might be by accident, but I think that they were tracking it, and just before the 4 years came and I would then be open up to some more planning rights on my agricultural land, that 4 years of being on the land and living there in a caravan, they slapped an enforcement on me. And the enforcement was, you haven't built your agricultural barn. So you've, by serendipitously, been living on the land and changed the use of the land by not building your agri barn. And I was like, well, the barn's not there. So how can they were saying that I haven't built the barn, so I've changed the use. But then on the Class Q, they've said I've built the barn too much, which blocked the Class Q. And these are the games that you play. Should we go through that again, because that might be a little bit confused?
Yeah.
All right. So my first application was my PD for my agri barn. Okay. I'm building that 5 years, staying on the land to do it. Unfortunately, I got ill, so I didn't build it. Okay. And then I applied for a Class Q in 2018, which would have used my hay barn and turned it to a house, a residential house. This was refused because of I've got this PD agricultural barn developed recently. And they said no. Then 2 years after that, 3 years and 11 months after the PD barn, they've said I've done a change of use of the land because I haven't done enough work on the PD barn. So they blocked my planning for too much work, and then they give me an enforcement for saying I haven't done enough work. In a nutshell. All right? So these are the sort of challenges that you're going to go through when engaging with some local planning authorities, especially if you're from Bedford Borough Council, where we are. I can go into whole rabbit holes of how they're not qualified to judge these agricultural plans. They're all town planners and they've got no experience in agricultural matters, and essentially they make assumptions and false opinions to derail you, basically. So that's where we're at. So then I'm in 2018 going, right, we're in a bit of a pickle here. They've served an enforcement on us. So that means I have to get off the land because of I've done too much work or not enough work on my caravan, in the words of the council. But I then had a brainwave. I had a brainwave in the fact that why don't we restart again? Because I didn't build my agricultural barn, why don't I do another PD agricultural barn? And it has to be at least 100 metres away from the original site. So I put it up into where we're doing our community farm and our chicken rescue and stuff like that. So I put a PD for an agricultural barn up there instead, 100 metres away from the original PD barn, agri barn. And that was in 2019, and it was approved. So for me, I thought, awesome, that's a restart. We go again. So as soon as we got our PD for an agricultural barn, we can now stay in our caravan, supposedly, for 5 years to build that new barn. All right? That's where we're at. And I was trying to grow the farm business as we were going. I thought we were safe. That's where I thought we were landing. I thought we were all right with that. So moving, we started developing the farm. We had more livestock. We did more chickens, which is my passion. And as a side hustle, I started doing serviced accommodation, furnished holiday lets. And in 2020, we had an idea of putting a planning application in for holiday lets on the farm. And they were super duper, zero emission modular builds for the farm. And we thought the council were going to love these because of it's hitting all of the agenda and everything along those lines. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. We're going to make the council look good. So we put a pre-app in for 2020, and with that, a planning officer will come and visit you and sort of like have a conversation around your plans. They can't commit either way of what you're going to be doing. So they can't say yes or no, but they can sort of like talk around the approach. They can talk around what would be acceptable, what isn't acceptable, and everything along those lines. So we booked in for this pre-app, And the planning officer, I forget his name now, turned up 1 month, 1 week, 1 hour late. So that's the for me, that's just like disrespectful. You're turning up unannounced 1 month, 1 week and an hour late from your original appointment. Just didn't turn up for the original appointment and then turns up a month later. And we spoke around our planning application for our holiday lets and our manager's accommodation. And he liked it. I was like, here we go. We're all right here. We might be onto something. All right. He was like, we like what you're doing with the holiday lets, giving access to the open countryside for more people. You've considered everything, zero emission, modular builds, lovely. No scarring of the land, would sit nicely and be complementary. But our viewpoint is that we would give you temporary planning permission. And I can remember just freezing. We was just walking down the drive and I just froze for a second. I did quick maths in my head. And I had this little alarm bell go in my mind that wouldn't help me because I needed the planning gain of planning permission for our holiday lets and our manager's accommodation to get our planning gain to refinance and then pay for the development. And obviously if we got temporary, our planning gain would be a lot less, if even anything. So then I wouldn't be able to refinance and get things going. So I challenged him. I actually challenged him. I said, well, why would it be temporary planning for the holiday lets? And he said, well, most businesses fail within the first 3 years, which statistically is correct. Businesses do fail, a large percentage of businesses fail within those first 3 years. And he wanted to make sure that we wanted to do that and be successful for the planning to actually stick. But as I said, I just started to do a side hustle of serviced accommodation. And HMRC actually classifies that, serviced accommodation, which is short-term lets essentially in towns, as furnished holiday lets. So I said to the planning officer, we actually got a side hustle of doing furnished holiday lets, and it's turning over a certain amount. So we've actually got a successful business already. Can we go for full planning? And he disagreed. He was like, well, no, that's different from holiday lets. So I followed it up with, the HMRC classification of furnished holiday lets and serviced accommodation and everything along those lines. And then nothing, no reply from the council at all until a few weeks later. It was along the lines of, temporary planning and everything along those lines. And I was like, well, what is that? So then I challenged that piece and put in a full planning application for the holiday lets and the manager's accommodation, the farmhouse. Long story short on this one, they'd gone from, yes, we'll give, not yes, because they can't do that on the pre-app, but we suggest a temporary planning application. So I put in a full planning application for my holiday lets. So I went from a pre-app to a full planning application with the costs and the surveys and everything along those lines, topography, ecology, highways consultant, the lot. All right, so it spent a lot of money, and obviously the architect fees and the design fees and everything along those lines, put the full planning application in.
Don't forget the bats.
Oh, and the BAT survey as well, and the Newt survey, multiple surveys, all right? And long story short, well, not again, the first time I'm going to go long story short, is essentially they refused it, and number one, I think it was about 8 points that they refused it on, but number one was the poignant one, right? Number one, refusal for the principle of development. How can they go from a pre-app suggesting temporary planning, okay, for my holiday lets and my manager's accommodation, to actually the thought of development is so abhorrent, it's automatic refusal, right? And there's no dialogue or consultation in the middle of there, all right? But what did happen was a change in officer. That was one planning officer who was very bad on his timings because he was 1 month, 1 week and 1 hour late. To a new principal planning officer who had a totally different point of view and just said, number one, the principle of development in the open countryside where you are outside a local settlement area, in green space, no, nada, nothing, refusal. So where do you go from there? That was the question. I was like, where do I go from here? Considering all of the backstory of the last, so that was 6 years at that point, where do I go? You know, my agri barn has been paused and stopped. My class Q has been interrupted by my PD. And now the actual thought of developing any development in that area, the principle of development, total refusal. I was like, shizzer. Everything that we've gone through. Like going up in smoke, nothing. Don't know where to go, what to do. I'm going to need to get some help here. I need to get an opinion. And funny enough, fortuitously, one of my old rugby muckers, Cots, he messaged me and says, oh, my mate does planning consultancy in your area, you should message him. And it was literally just at that time. So, you know, the universe working and everything along those lines. So a fella that I ain't even spoken to since my identity crisis 6 years before or whatever it was, 8 years before, he just messaged me and goes, oh, my mate's doing planning stuff and I know you're doing some property stuff and everything along those lines. You should have a chat. So I had a chat with him, Matt Brown of Brown Boots Planning. Okay, so he is my planning consultant. And he's taken all of this story that I've just told you now and just gone, hey, way, woo, wah, what has been going on? You know, it's an absolute mess. I've made all of the mistakes. And this is what I'm going to try and, illustrate to everybody. I've done all of the mistakes. The journey that you go through, the order that you do, what you're saying and when you're saying it and how you do it, all had an intertwined impact on things. To the point where the council have gone, the principal development in your area is a no. Where do you go from there? I'm like, ouch. Where do I go? I asked that question of Matt Brown. And he was like, you've got yourself in a bit of a pickle here, Scotty. And I was like, yes, I know, Matt. How can you help? And he goes, well, it's plain to see that actually your intent is to farm this land. And I was like, yes, it is. And he goes, in your first appeal on your agricultural barn that I told everybody about, I appealed it, the planning inspectorate said on his decision that it is obvious that we have the intent to farm. Intent to farm. We're not looking to do a moon base. We're not looking to do, 50 Barratt homes or anything along those lines. We're not looking to build a palace in the middle of the open countryside. Me, my lady, and now my 2 kids by this time. The wonderful Millie has come along by this time. Our intention is to grow our farm business, is to farm the land and to grow a family business that gives us the stability to stay in a wonderful place, be feral, be fun, be free. That is our dream, right? And I was like, okay, so yeah, Matt, you got our intent is to farm. And he goes, that's the case that we're going to build this whole thing around. So it's the intent to farm is very important. Okay, so all of the planning mistakes and the history that I did on site can be, judged in one particular way. But from that moment in speaking to Matt Brown, moving forward, we were building the case to have an agricultural workers dwelling, and that's the terminology. An agricultural workers dwelling. It's not a farmhouse. It's not a residence. It is an agricultural workers dwelling. Your intent is to farm the land and have a farm business. Okay, and that's very important. So then in I'm just having a little look here, 2023 to 2024, which is bringing us up to this time, we've actually put in 2 agricultural workers dwelling applications, one a full planning straight away and one as a temporary basis as well. Okay, and I can go into the rhymes and reasons for that. And then I've also put in another PD for a barn. Guess what? All 3 of them have been refused. Okay, and you start questioning what you're actually doing here. And I'm sure that we'll go into some more questions and other episodes and everything along those lines. And I'm actually going to write a blog as well for the website that details how they got to those refusals. And it clearly states, it clearly shows in those refusals, because of the planning history, okay, they've missed the intent of what I was there for. Because of the planning history, there is prejudice from the local planning authority. There is negligence from the local planning authority, and they've quite simply made a decision where they are not qualified to make a decision. And I'll detail all of that out in the blog with evidence. We've done a Freedom of Information Act and seen emails between the council themselves not knowing what to do. And we've got evidence to show that they've refused one planning application of that agricultural workers dwelling piece without actually reading any of the evidence, any of the application. And we've got evidence of this. There's a sequence of events where it shows that they actually didn't read the application. Okay, and these are the challenges you're going to come up against. They didn't read the application and just refused it. And going through that, Matt Brown's like, okay, something really weird's going on here. We'll do a Freedom of Information Act. So we did a Freedom of Information Act, and we've actually got emails between the planning officers showing how negligent and prejudiced they are. Okay, and I'll document all of that, and I think it should be up for the public domain to do that, to show people how to get away from that. So each 3 of those planning applications, my first one is in appeal right now, and the Planning Inspectorate has changed it from a written submission to an informal hearing that hopefully we've got in February. So right now, what year is it? 2024, December 2024. In February 2025, we've got a hearing, so a conversation and a chat with the Planning Inspectorate. So my current planning application for an agricultural workers dwelling is in appeal. It's December 2024 now. It's a written statement for appeal. And recently the Planning Inspectorate has asked for an informal hearing in a couple of months' time in February 2025. So I'll keep you updated to do that. But essentially it shows intent that we want to farm. It shows a business plan that we're financially sound and we're functionally needed to be on site. And essentially the Planning Inspectorate wants to test that evidence. Okay? And we're going for a planning permission for an agricultural workers dwelling for that. And that's in appeal right now. Then the other 2 is for a temporary agricultural workers dwelling. That's pending appeal. And funny enough, we put in another PD, permitted development, for another agricultural barn, which they actually refused. Okay? And the other 2 that they permitted, that I've spoken to you about, so the first one obviously got allowed. Then the second one in 2019, in some sort of attempt to block the enforcement in 2019, that got allowed. And I used the exact same application, the same measurements, the same description, the same reason to have a barn, and it got refused. So again, it paints as a story, all right? Our current planning officer has got prejudice and just refused it. She hasn't seen the planning applications before and knows the rules and regulations of the permitted development. She is underqualified and she doesn't know permitted development around agricultural barns, so she refused it. It is not straightforward. And that's where we are at the moment. We have qualified, with Matt Brown's help, that we've got a sound business plan. Our intent is to farm. Remember that. When he picked out all the mess, it was like, the key piece here is your intent to farm. Right? Tell us what you're going to be doing. All right, no problem. Sexy business plan. Okay, we've got Savills agricultural consultant, Stuart Nichols. He's then reviewed my business plan, okay, and said that it goes over the thresholds of financially stable and functionally needed to be on site. So now I've got someone that's very qualified to appraise the business plan and the intent of us being there, which then unlocks the agricultural workers dwelling piece. And that's what's in flight at the moment. So very exciting time, but very nervous time, because as you can imagine, all of the knocks and the punches and the slaps and the mistakes that have happened over the last 10 years, it's sort of like made us very nervous, because we don't know what's coming. You know, hopefully it's taken out of the subjective point of view from the local planning authority, and in planning inspectorate with this informal hearing that we've got in February, we'll see the evidence, see the intent, and allow us to have our agricultural workers dwelling. Everybody pray that works for me, please. Just give me some good vibes and the universe will provide, right? And that's us moving forward. They're the key parts, which is the intent, the functional and financial need for you to be there, and then the building that we're actually going for as well, funny enough, is actually a Caravan Act compliant building. Okay, the plans of it, and I'm not going to dive deep into why we've done that, but essentially the plans of it is 20 metres by 6.9 metres, something along those, or 19.9 metres by 6.7 metres, something along those lines. 3-bedroom barn, essentially, that provides that stability and that legacy piece that I spoke to you back from 2010 that my nan provided. That safe space that anybody can come to, right? That open the door when you're in the shit. Just come to Hill Farm and you can come and stay at our black barn. That's where we're at now, and that'll be totally life changing for us. With the backstory of the last 10 years. I said to the missus, we'll have a house within a year. It's been 10 years. It's been 10 years. And the commitment and the sacrifice my lady and my kids have done is, they've been through a lot. Now, don't get me wrong. We've had the most joyous of times as well. And that's what's going to happen on your farm. It amplifies feelings and emotions. You're going to have the best of times. So the best of times are having a campfire with your family, with your friends, that sound of kids going feral in the background. You've got your music and your vibes going on. You've got some beers on chill, you've got some cocktails going on, and you're just being with the people that you love in perceived freedom. You've got grass in between your toes. You've got the ability to roam where you like. You're not overlooked by anybody, and you can just be human and you can love each other. That's just absolutely beautiful. And we've had pockets of that. But then it also amplifies the other side of things as well. You're going to go through the shit that the council are going to throw at you. You're going to go through bills not being paid. You're going to go through the challenges of getting infrastructure sorted out. You're going to go through challenges of death of livestock, the wellness of livestock, the happiness of livestock. Fences are going to get broken. Animals are going to collide. It's going to be absolutely chaos and hard. The mud, the ice, the water's frozen. The pigs are just having a fight over there. The kids are crying because they're ill. You're going to go through that as well. And it amplifies. It can get really dark, as I've explained on some of my origin story. But hold on to that vision and crack on through. Because of everybody needs a safe space to go to. You need to be around good people, and that's what I'm going to provide. My nan taught me that, And my mum taught me that. My mum famously had this round table in her kitchen, and the rugby team was just around this, this table. We were playing games, we were drinking and everything along those lines, all the way through our teens and everything along those lines. It was that one space where you just go to, and that's what we're trying to replicate. And that's to the core of me, and that's why I got a bit emotional about that. So that's a little timeline about trials and tribulations. Any questions, Alan? Did you want questions halfway through that? Or you just like, oh my God, what was that?
This was an epic story. I'm keen to find out more about this crazy farmer guy.
The original farmer?
The original farmer.
Yeah.
What was he doing on the land?
Yeah, very good question. Right, so going back to when we were negotiating, so I've gone down the drive and I'm giddy knickers. I'm like, this is the place.
Were you skipping?
Yeah, I was like, this is it. Lady, let's go. So we get round to the homestead and I can't find him. Where is he? So, I give him a call and he's come out behind this barn. I was like, all right, hello, job done. And what he'd done, he'd actually tried to do the field to farm piece, but what he did wrong was he didn't do the PD for the barn. He just got a caravan and hid it behind one of the barns that he built. So he'd done some great work. So he put in a long drive, he put in 2 big barns, he put in some stables. So he's invested in infrastructure. That was going to be his dream home. Unfortunately, he had some life events and he had to sell. But what he did was he put a caravan behind the barn and then put a big fence around it, put a roof over the top of it and tried to hide it. So, follow the rules, basically. Don't break the rules, right? Just don't break. And you've heard these stories, the urban myth of other farmers having land and, doing haystacks and for hiding a caravan in the haystacks. And behaviour like that actually changed some of the rules because of, funny enough, now the council need to know that you're there for 4 years before it opens up your rights. Whereas before, you just had to hide for 4 or 10 years, depending on your scenario. Yeah. You just had to hide and not get reported for 4 years, and then you got some planning rights. But yeah, he was hiding his caravan behind the barn, and it was freezing cold right there because it backed up against the woods. And me and the missus was like, why have this beautiful place and then hide a caravan, freezing cold, like proper freezing cold, got no sunlight, between the barn and the woods, right? And you've got this beautiful vista. You've got these rolling hills, you've got birds going along and everything along those lines. We were like, when we buy this place, we are living there. That's where our caravan's going. It's going to, frame that whole land there. So that's what he did. And it was that sort of like behaviour. He'd done some great stuff on there. But then, obviously, the behaviour of the last minute trying to gazump me. It was like, no, the deal's off unless you give me another $5,000 or I keep the tractor. So he's just done a fast one. He sold his tractor in the meantime and done that sort of like negotiating piece. But what a character. No, I actually, thank him a lot for putting the initial infrastructure in. Because that can cost a lot of money. You put in the drive, you put in a borehole for us. Didn't have any power, so we have now got off-grid power. So we've got off-grid solar batteries fueled by solar panels and a backup red diesel generator. We've gone through a lot of generators. I mean a lot of generators. The little dinky ones, the medium ones, the big ones. We've gone through them all. Just because obviously you put a kettle and a toaster on and it just got... done all of that, freezing cold, ice on the inside of the windows, and you put the kettle and the toaster on, the electric's blown, and you're outside trying to fix this generator, peeing down with rain, muck everywhere. Oh, it's all fun and games. Oh, you'll love it. You'll absolutely love it.
You're selling it.
And then the last bit that we've put in was also an off-grid sewage plant as well. So it's not a septic tank, but it's an off-grid sewage plant where all of our waste goes into a plant, and then it's got a byproduct of water. So the water runs off, then you desludge it and everything along those lines. So now we've got the infrastructure in there, life becomes a lot easier. But when we were going through the dark times, I had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, go outside, put my wellies on, go outside, trudge about 40 odd metres, 50 odd metres, turn on the generator, fill the generator up with diesel, turn the generator on, then go back to the caravan to be able to put your kettle on, to then have a cup of coffee. So it's those sacrifices in lifestyle and convenience that as soon as we got our off-grid energy system, wow, we thought we were alive. I could wake up, just put the kettle on straight away. I could have a hot coffee without going to freeze my nuts off outside. It's just incremental improvements like that make it all worthwhile. And it's absolutely wonderful. So our next stage now is to get that agricultural workers dwelling, and away you go.
Right. How many wild things and plants do you have on your farm?
How many what?
Wild things.
As in animals?
Yeah.
Currently, we've got chickens, goats, sheep, pigs, ponies, Shetland ponies, 2 Shetland ponies, Crumble and Poppy, 2 cats, 2 dogs, 2 kids. We got we got a lot of plan to actually do more rescue chickens, because that's my passion. I love rehoming ex-battery hens, so we're going to grow that in one of the paddocks. One of the paddocks we've planted over 1,500 trees with the Woodland Trust, sorry. So we've done a community project there and planted 1,500 trees there, and all of our rescue chickens are going to be scurrying around there, living their best life, which is absolutely fantastic. We're going to be going into more rare breed livestock, so it'll be rare breed goats, rare breed poultry, rare breed pig, and be selling them to more to smallholders. So we don't do for meat. We're one of those crazy people that put all this energy and love into the animals and then don't do meat, which my best mate Willie has real issues with. As soon as he comes on the farm, he just wants to, stick something on the barbecue. Just anything that's moving, he puts on the barbecue. We've had some friendly conversations about that. That's the plan for the business moving forward. More rare breed livestock, and the wonderful aquaponics, the microgreens, the super greens that we're going to be doing with you as well. So that's the magic that we're moving forward with.
I'm interested in chickens. Can I raise chickens in the city?
Essentially, why not? Of course you can.
In my back garden, which is frequented by foxes.
That's the issue. Yeah, we've had ducks and geese before and a lot of chickens, and the fox gets them, unfortunately. And they watch you. These foxes, they watch you. And they wait for the one time that you leave the door open or look the other way, and they're in. They're done. They'll have them. So the security, we've grown our chicken business, but then we've had to come all the way back again until we get the right infrastructure in. We carelessly went large with it, but then we didn't have the right fencing, the right coops, the right runs to keep the foxes out. Now we do. So now we've just got to incrementally build it up to keep the foxes out. They are too clever. Funny enough, this last Tuesday, I was working, doing some emails and stuff. Fox just walked straight past the door. No bother on it. Dogs are going nuts. Fox just walks straight past, on the way up to the chickens. You're like, you little shizamanizer. Beautiful thing. Beautiful thing. Absolutely looks stunning, majestic, just pouncing along. But now we've got the right infrastructure in, right fencing, then your chickens will survive.
Build Alcatraz, then get chickens.
Exactly. Okay. Fire pits, electric fences, you know,
every booby trap.
Every booby trap, because these foxes will get you. Yeah. It's good fun.
All right.
So yeah, if you've liked Scotty H's origin story, remember to like and subscribe and get that bell going because of that notification piece. I'll update you on when we get our agricultural workers dwelling permission. So make sure that you get those notifications from the podcast and from YouTube. And for the future episodes, we're going to be showing you how to find the land, how to finance it, how to build your business, how to get the infrastructure in, how to do all of this stuff, along with my journey and all of my mistakes over the last 10 years, David's innovation and know-how around horticulture, agriculture and everything along those lines, and Alan's burning desire to find his own land, get his farm going for his family. It's deep rooted in him. But as you've seen from my origin story, you have to hold on to that vision. Because if it's all great us giving you the plan, it's when you actually get into the implementation, it can get tough. So you've got to hold on to that vision. Hold to that vision where you want to get to that freedom piece on your own farm. Like and subscribe, and we'll help you along the way, because we've all been there, been through it, and we can help you on your journey. Viva la revolution.